I'm going to go over the second gear mod for the JR50 / KDX50 since they're identical. This one I've already done it, and the reassembly process did not go as well as I had wanted. So I had the cover off multiple times to get it right. So I just kind of wanted to go over a few of the items to make it easier for the next person to do this. As you can see here, I've already removed the manifold bolts because we need to move the carburetor to have access to this screw down here in the side cover. I've also taken off the side cover so that I just remove the tank with the hose. I don't have to take any of this off when I take the side cover off. I've removed the kickstand already, which is pretty common knowledge, so I'm not going to waste your time with that. I do take off the peg assembly just to make access a lot easier and get the cover off. You could remove the brake lever, but it's really not necessary. You can lift the whole thing off. As I take this off, I'm going to show you a few things. This cover will eventually have to come off for the reassembly, so you can either take it off ahead of time or afterwards, but I'll show you that in the next clip. I'm not sure if these screws are a JIS, which I'm guessing they are with the age of the motorcycle. Everything back then was JIS from Japan. You can use a Phillips. Some of these on the initial disassembly I had to use an impact driver with a large Phillips bit to break them loose. I'm going to use an actual JIS screwdriver right now because none of them are that tight, and for the reassembly I'll also use a JIS. When you're doing this, these screws are all the same length on the clutch cover, so you can keep them all together in a pile. These other screws on the cover are different lengths. If you can't keep them organized and do lose track of where they go, when you go to put them back in, you'll know you have it right if all of them are sticking out about the same amount before you screw them in. Trust me, I learned this the hard way, that they got mixed up. If they don't look right, they probably aren't. So when you're putting it back together, if they're all sticking out about the same amount, you're good to go. You can see here the screws that I've removed for the cover removal. Back under the carburetor there. This one does not need to come out, but you can take it out. It won't harm anything. When you reassemble, you might have to pull this one anyway. When you're getting things located, this arm here to hold it out of the way of the kickstart assembly, I use one of the manifold bolts. Screw it down in there to hold this arm out of the way. And you'll see once we get it apart what I'm talking about. The clutch bolts you do not need to remove. This bolt here is a locator bolt. At some point you're going to have to take it out, so you can remove it before your disassembly of the cover or afterwards. What this does is helps you locate your shift mechanism with this bolt. It just holds it from going too far. As you can see here, I used a box, and I'm no artist, but put my screws in place where they go just to help with the reassembly. Like I said, they're all different lengths. I'll be able to use this box again since the JR50 still will be getting the second gear mod after I'm done finishing up the KDX50. The original disassembly, I probably could have saved the gasket, but I had it apart so many times I damaged the gasket on the cover. I ordered some new ones. The clutch cover, I have not damaged that gasket, so I'm going to be reusing it. And I'll show you more once I have it apart. Okay, you can see I've got the cover off, and in the last video I talked about the locator bolt holding the shift mechanism. I meant to say the kickstart mechanism. This would be that bolt that uses a 17mm wrench on the outside, and what it does, it comes in against this mechanism right here and keeps this locked in place. Keeps it from going round and round. Like I said, you'll need to have it out at some point. You can see I've already done the low gear mod on this by opening this up. There's other videos out there. In the stock form, this would all be filled in, and the other side is the open side. Pulling this spring off and this piece here off, I used a die grinder with a carbide bit and clean that out. Makes a little bit of a mess, but you can get it cleaned out of there. If you don't have air available for pneumatics, a drill would probably work too. This, on my original disassembly, this roller, this washer with the roller bearings here, I didn't realize I had dropped that, and it ended up under a rag. So when I reassembled, no matter what I would do, every time I would run the kickstart, it would turn everything like it's supposed to, but it would not engage the crankshaft with the piston and rod. And then I realized that that washer with the rollers was missing and got it put in. So you want to be careful there. And when you reassemble everything, let's see, this is the mechanism I was talking about. You can use the manifold bolt that comes up through that hole, and will hold this in place, which holds this roller bearing out away from here, and that'll line up with your slot in that. So when you use that manifold bolt, you don't need to make it tight, just snug to hold this out of the way on reassembly. You want to make sure your dimples on your pressure plate line up with these, and that's why you want to remove the clutch cover, so when you reassemble it you don't get anything in a bind. Ask me how I know. So we'll go ahead and get the gasket and get things reassembled. Okay, here we have the new gasket on. Interesting thing, I ordered these gaskets for the JR50 KDX50. Everything was correct except the hole for this assembly here was not big enough. Quick little work with the razor knife and open that up to fit around that. I'm going to put the cover on. I can't do a lot of this one-handed, so I'll just take little clips as I reassemble. Like I said, I'm gonna put the manifold screw bolt in here to hold this out of the way of this. As we put it on, we'll get things turned into place and get our locating screw where it needs to be. And we'll go from there. Okay, I'm starting to put the cover back on. You can see I have the manifold bolt there, just finger tight against that arm to hold it out of the way. When you're assembling, there's a slot in this piece back here. You'll see that lines up with this arm. You want to make sure you have that slot where it needs to be. That can turn by hand. Make sure where it's at so you don't put it in a bind with this. What I'm going to do now is I have some shaft exposed here. I'm going to put the Kickstarter, just slide it onto the shaft, and I'll move the Kickstarter as I wiggle the cover down into place. That way everything kind of lines up. Once we're down, I'll remove this and I will look in the hole to see where this needs to be for my locator bolt. Okay, you can see I've got our cover back on. You just want to wiggle it down into place. Don't be forceful. There'll be a little bit of spring tension up here. Again, make sure that you're lined up with the slot here so it's not in a bind. When you do have things back in place, you can see I've got a couple screws to just kind of hold the cover where it needs to be. If you watch the mechanism move I've got it in gear, as you push down on the Kickstarter, it will, you can see, move that, which puts some pressure from the pressure plate down onto this and engages your crankshaft, so your engine actually spins over. From here, I'm going to get the rest of my screws in, put my clutch cover on. I've got the locator bolt back in here. I'll get the Kickstarter on, get the foot pegs on, and get some oil in it, and of course get the manifold bolted back on. And maybe I'll put my 180-pound butt on it and get a little speed test. I've got a short video clip of the two grandsons, one running in high gear on that one, the other one with the lower gear on this one, both with training wheels, so you can kind of see the speed difference. I'll try and edit those into the video also so you can see. Alright, we've got the KDX50 back together, no leaks, got it running good. Took it down the road with my 180 pounds on it, checking with GPS, the low gear, the new gear that's available, 15 mile an hour, and high gear 22 mile an hour. So with the factory throttle stop screw, which this one does not have anymore, that low gear would be handy for a new rider. Turn down the throttle position, you don't have the issues of getting moving in the grass or anything because of the lower gear, but you also can keep the speed down. So again, I'll have a little clip of the two grandsons riding side by side, one in high gear and one in low, and you'll kind of see the difference. Thank you. You can see here I've got the JR50 ready to do the modification. I don't know how well you can see that. I have it in gear right now, which exposes this side. I'll be notching this side out basically to match this side, and then we will have another gear available. Of course, you can see I've pulled off the spring and the cover there, and I cover up as much as I can. We're still gonna be cleaning this out with brake parts cleaner when we're done, but the less metal flakes going around, the better. You can see here I got this carbide bit. Bought that at Baumgart's, about 13 bucks. Makes quick work of things. As you can see, that little carbide bit made quick work of this. Opened it up real well. Even with everything covered, got a lot of metal flakes in there. I did have paper towels stuffed down this hole to keep things from falling down in there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stand it up, tip it over to the right, get some brake parts cleaner, watch this out real well, and then get it reassembled. After we run some oil in it for a while, we'll go ahead and drain that oil out again. Takes about half a quart, and that'll help clean things out. You can see now, right now it would be in the normal high gear that you've always known, and then when it gets pulled that way, you now have a lower gear. Like I said, after my test on the KDX with GPS, 15 mile an hour tops in low gear and 22 mile an hour tops in high gear with my 180 pound body on the little bike.